Water plunges off an ancient cliff into a primordial valley as cockatoos drift above, their screeches echoing off the vertical cliffs. Where the master of mimicry, the lyrebird, scratches around unfurling fern fronds looking for a feed. Warm air rising from the valley floor meets the cool breath of the escarpment, weaving a mist through the rainforest canopy until the whole landscape seems to float in the pale, swirling haze. This is the National Pass, and the story of how it came to be. James Summerfield Murray was a Scottish-born lad who left home in 1848, just 15 years old, to earn his place on the decks of trading boats that crossed the Baltic, White and Mediterranean seas. He proved himself quickly. By 25 he was already chief officer of the Haddington, and from there his career only gathered pace. Ship after ship, command after command, his name appeared numerous times in the logs of the Peninsular and Oriental Navigation Company, or P&O, through the late 1800s. In 1882, construction was underway on Sydney's new Royal Prince Alfred Hospital in Camperdown. Wanting the right leadership for the modern facility, Premier Sir Henry Parkes wrote to Florence Nightingale for advice on who should serve as matron. Nightingale recommended a skilled 30-year-old nurse named Elizabeth Lila Murray. It was on the ship from England that she met its captain, a man that coincidentally shared the same surname. Yep, that would be Captain James Murray. They married 2 years later, in 1884, at Paddington, James aged 50, Elizabeth 32. Elizabeth resigned from the RPA in 1886 and went on to serve as matron of the Newington Asylum, a position she held for 8 years. During this period, the couple welcomed 2 sons and a daughter, while James, whose health wasn't so crash hot, retired from the sea in 1888. Not long afterwards, the family made a permanent move to the Blue Mountains. The Murrays were living comfortably, supported in part by a tidy property portfolio that stretched from Sydney to the upper mountains. In Sydney, they owned land at Rose Bay and a house in Coogee. In Wentworth Falls, their holdings were even more substantial. A shop on Bathurst Road, along with 4 letting cottages nearby. There was St Cyrus on Boonara Road, now Falls Road, Dunedin and Glen Isla in the Avenue, and the 3-bedroom cottage called Rhoda, located on the Murray's own property on Wentworth Street. Their Wentworth Street property covered 6 acres, part bushland, part landscaped grounds. It was here that they built 2 substantial cottages, 7-bedroom Sand Patch and 5-bedroom The Lodge, now known as Baronia. A stable, several sheds and a coach house completed the layout. Here's a little tidbit for you. Whilst diving into the old files on the Murrays, I came across this old delivery card for Captain Murray from J. Train & Co., a marble merchant in Sydney that began trading in 1903. I wonder what was delivered. The pair threw themselves into public life. James served on the board of directors for the Queen Victoria Homes for Consumptives and acted as chairman for the trustees for the National Reserves. Elizabeth, often known as Lila, was just as active. She worked as secretary for the Ladies' Home Mission Union, served as vice president of the Women's Guild, and led the local Red Cross Society as its president, just to name a few. In the late 1800s, Many of the region's lookouts and walking tracks were created off the back of private wealth. Sydney's elite had begun carving out summer retreats in the mountains, and with them came a wave of privately funded pathways. Sir Henry Parkes built an extensive network of tracks across his Falconbridge property, setting a precedent for others. His neighbour, James Martin, followed with his own system of trails, many of which he kept open for the public to enjoy. With no established access into the valley below Wentworth Falls, and driven by Captain Murray's deep affection for the area, an idea he'd long nurtured was on the verge of becoming reality. Just a stone's throw from their acreage in Wentworth Falls, James led the construction of a bold new walking track in 1906. He led a team of 5 men nicknamed the Irish Brigade, men that had proven to be quite elusive in the history books, to get cracking on this wild idea. As for this brigade, I've managed to find their names after a little digging. Philip Flynn, a man listed as caretaker of the Wentworth Falls Reserves in 1903. Daniel Murphy, who was connected with the old Catholic church that was relocated from short-lived Gladstone Colliery in Lura to Wentworth Falls in 1896. The remaining 3 are Patrick Murphy, Frank Gralston, and William Dixon. The track stretches roughly 2.5 kilometres, beginning at Lodore Falls on Valley of Waters Creek and winding eastward to the top of Wentworth Falls. Along its route, the track clings to a narrow ledge suspended between cliffs, one towering above, the other plunging below, offering sweeping views across Jamison Valley to the rugged silhouette of Mount Solitary. As you emerge from the bush approaching Jamison Creek, you find yourself between the upper and lower tiers of Wentworth Falls. The sheer majesty of these falls hits you as you peer up, watching the water plunge from high above. The highlight of the National Pass is undeniably the Grand Stairway, steps hewn directly into the cliff face, descending toward the middle tier of Wentworth Falls. It's said that Captain Murray himself was lowered over the edge in the bosun's chair to survey the drop, taking full advantage of the clay stone for the track's construction. The work was formidable, relying on picks, shovels and dynamite to carve a path where few had dared to tread. Spare a thought to Captain Murray and those bloody marvellous Irish lads that risked their lives building this thing. The National Pass was officially opened on 28 March 1908. Guests gathered for a luncheon at Toll's house, once located at the end of Falls Road, before it was lost to fire in 1932. After dining, they set out to walk the new track, a path that had taken 2 years to carve from the cliffs at a cost of £430, with 400 of that provided by the government. They descended the Valley of Waters to the pass, then traversed it to Wentworth Falls. Once up the Grand Stairway, they were met with a gathering of dignitaries from the mountain district, enjoying tea served by a committee of ladies, an elegant touch to mark the completion of this remarkable engineering feat. Beyond the National Pass and their handful of homes in Wentworth Falls, the Murray legacy is etched into the landscape. Britannia Falls, named for their daughter, herself named after James's final ship. Lila Falls, a tribute to Elizabeth. And Murray Park, a piece of land Elizabeth owned just across the road from their family home, all quietly preserving their mark on the mountains. Elizabeth died 9th of September 1916, and James died 3 years later, aged 86, on 3rd of February 1919. Both are buried in Wentworth Falls Cemetery, along with their daughter Britannia. Today, the National Pass remains a testament to Captain Murray's vision and the grit of the Irish Brigade who carved the trail. Every step carries a piece of history, a reminder of a man's devotion to the mountains and the enduring connection between people and landscape.